The billionaire laughed as the crowd gathered around the massive steel safe standing against the glass wall of his office. Sunlight poured in from the floor-to-ceiling windows, reflecting off polished marble and gold-framed awards that screamed power and success. Cameras flashed. Influencers whispered. Lawyers smiled politely, already convinced they were watching another rich man entertain himself. "I'll say it again," the billionaire announced, his voice dripping with amusement. "This safe holds $100 million. Cash, bonds, secrets, everything people dream about. Open it, and it's yours." He tapped the metal twice with his knuckles. "Simple deal. But don't get excited. In 10 years, no one has cracked it." The room chuckled on cue. He had made this joke many times before, during charity galas, business conferences, even late-night interviews. Hackers with glowing resumes had tried. Engineers with degrees from the best universities had failed. A former intelligence expert once spent 6 hours sweating over the keypad before walking away defeated. Each failure fed the billionaire's legend. Near the doorway stood a young black girl, barely noticed by anyone. She held a mop in one hand and a small plastic bucket in the other. Her uniform was a size too big, sleeves rolled up to keep them from getting wet. Her shoes were worn thin at the soles. She had been cleaning offices in this building for nearly a year, always at night, always silent. Her name was Amara. She wasn't supposed to be there. The event had started early, and she had been told to wait outside. But she had paused when she heard the laughter, the confidence, the sound of a man who believed the world could never surprise him. "Anyone can try," the billionaire added casually, waving his hand. "I don't bite." A few people stepped back instinctively, smiling but uninterested. They already knew how this ended. The billionaire's eyes scanned the room and landed on Amara. She felt it immediately. The sudden weight of attention. Murmurs followed. "Who's that? Staff. Is she serious?" She tightened her grip on the mop. Her heart thudded, not with fear, but with something older, something familiar. A quiet certainty she had carried since childhood. Before she could stop herself, she took one step forward. The guards moved instantly. "Hey, no, this area's restricted." The billionaire raised an eyebrow. "Relax," he said, clearly entertained. "Let her come." Amara walked slowly toward the safe. Every step echoed in the vast office. People stared, some amused, some annoyed, some uncomfortable. She felt their eyes skim over her clothes, her skin, her posture, measuring her worth before she even spoke. "You want to try?" the billionaire asked, smiling like this was the best joke of the afternoon. "Yes, sir," she replied quietly. Laughter rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "This should be good." She stood in front of the safe but didn't touch it. Instead, she placed her palm flat against the cold steel. Her fingers trembled, not from doubt, but from memory. She remembered being a child in a cramped apartment where the walls were thin and the nights were loud. Her mother would sit her down and say, "Listen. Not just hear, but listen. To footsteps. To breathing. To the way silence changed before danger arrived. Everything has a pattern," her mother used to say. "People think secrets hide in noise, but they hide in repetition." Amara closed her eyes. The room grew restless. What's she doing? Is this some kind of performance? She leaned in, pressing her ear gently against the metal. The billionaire tilted his head, curious now. The safe was quiet, but not empty. There was a faint hum, almost like a breath. Beneath it, something else. A rhythm. She pulled back and looked at the keypad. 12 numbers. Smooth. Untouched by hesitation. She didn't rush. Instead, she lifted her hand and knocked softly on the safe, once, twice, pause, 3 times. A strange pattern. The billionaire frowned. Then she began entering numbers. Slowly. Carefully. No hesitation. Each press was deliberate, like she was following a melody only she could hear. Beep. Beep. Pause. Beep beep. A man near the window laughed loudly. "This is ridiculous." The billionaire's smile tightened. He had expected fumbling, panic, maybe tears. Not this calm. Amara stopped. Her finger hovered over the last number. The room felt suddenly smaller. Quieter. She pressed it. For half a second, nothing happened. Then, click. A sharp, unmistakable sound. The laughter died instantly. Another click followed, deeper this time, like a lock releasing a breath it had been holding for years. The safe door shifted. Gasps filled the room. Someone swore under their breath. A lawyer stepped forward, eyes wide. The billionaire froze, his face draining of color as the heavy steel door slowly swung open. Inside, neatly stacked, sat the fortune no one was ever meant to touch. Silence crashed down harder than the noise ever had. Amara stepped back. The billionaire stared at the open safe, then at her. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The joke, the legend, the certainty he had built his identity on, crumbled in front of everyone. "How?" he finally whispered. "How did you do that?" Amara met his eyes for the first time. There was no triumph in her expression. No pride. Just truth. "You gave the code away," she said softly. The room leaned in. "Every day," she continued. "The way you tap your desk when you're thinking. The rhythm you hum when you're confident. The numbers you repeat in your jokes, your speeches, your habits." She paused. "You say them when you think no one important is listening." Her words landed heavier than the open safe. The billionaire swallowed. Amara picked up her mop, her hands steady again. She hadn't come for the money. She hadn't even planned to step forward. She had only wanted one thing, to be seen. And for the first time in her life, the entire room was listening. The silence that followed felt unreal, like the building itself was holding its breath. The billionaire stood frozen, one hand gripping the edge of his desk, his eyes locked on the open safe as if it might suddenly close and erase what had just happened. No one laughed now. No one reached for their phones. The power in the room had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Security finally moved, stepping toward Amara out of instinct more than reason. "Stop," the billionaire said sharply, his voice cutting through the air. His eyes never left the safe. "No one touches her." Amara remained where she was, mop resting against her leg, her shoulders straight. For the first time, she noticed her hands were shaking, not with fear, but with the aftershock of being heard. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Sir, this is complicated. We need to verify." "I know exactly what this is," the billionaire interrupted. Slowly, he walked toward the safe, each step measured, like he was approaching something sacred. He reached inside, brushing his fingers against the stacks of bonds, the sealed envelopes, the wealth that had always felt untouchable. At the very back lay a yellowed piece of paper. His breath caught. He pulled it out and unfolded it. The handwriting was his, messy, arrogant, written years ago when he was younger and convinced the world existed to applaud him. "If someone opens this, they deserve it." The words stared back at him like a mirror. He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "I forgot about this," he murmured. The lawyer stepped closer. "Sir, that note isn't legally." "I know exactly what it is," the billionaire said again, this time louder. He turned toward Amara. "What's your name?" "Amara," she replied. "Amara," he repeated, tasting the sound of it. "Where did you learn to do this?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "From my mother." The room softened in a way no one expected. "She worked nights," Amara continued. "Factories. Warehouses. Places where machines never stopped talking." She said noise was just patterns arguing with each other. "If you learned the patterns, you learned the truth." The billionaire nodded slowly, listening, not waiting for his turn to speak, but actually listening. Amara glanced around the room. Faces that had once dismissed her now watched with something close to reverence. "I cleaned this office for months," she went on. "I heard you on calls. In meetings. Laughing. Angry. Tired. You always tapped the same rhythm when you were sure of yourself. Always the same numbers when you joked." She looked at the safe. "The lock wasn't your secret. You were." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The billionaire exhaled deeply, like a man who had been running for years without realizing it. "I've built my life on being the smartest person in the room," he said quietly. "And I never once wondered who was listening." He turned to the lawyers. "Clear the room." They hesitated. I said, "Clear it." Within minutes, the office emptied. Cameras were shut off. Doors closed. Only Amara, the billionaire, and the open safe remained. He gestured toward a chair. Please. Sit. She did. I could offer you a job, he said. Security. Consulting. More money than you've ever seen. Amara shook her head gently. I don't want to work for someone who just discovered I exist. The words stung, but they were fair. He leaned back, studying her. Then what do you want? She thought of her mother. Of the nights she had listened instead of sleeping. Of being invisible in rooms full of people. I want the chance to build something of my own, she said. Without asking permission. The billionaire smiled, not with arrogance, but with respect. He reached for a folder on his desk, flipped it open, and began writing. Pages slid out. He signed them without hesitation. This isn't a job, he said, pushing the papers toward her. It's ownership. Capital. Complete control. You walk away today with the safe untouched, or you take what's inside and turn it into whatever future you choose. Amara stared at the documents. Her hands hovered over them, the weight of possibility pressing down on her chest. And the world, she asked quietly. What story will they tell? He shrugged. That a billionaire made a joke and lost. Then, after a pause, or that a girl everyone ignored reminded him how dangerous listening can be. Amara signed. News broke before nightfall. Headlines exploded. Opinions clashed. Some called it reckless. Others called it justice. But in small apartments, in crowded classrooms, in quiet night shifts, people read the story and felt something rare, permission. Months later, the building no longer echoed with the sound of Amara's mop. Instead, her name appeared on glass doors, on startup documents, on scholarships she funded for kids taught to listen instead of shout. The billionaire watched from a distance as her influence grew. The safe was sealed again, not as a symbol of untouchable wealth, but as a reminder that the most powerful locks are often opened by those no one thinks to notice.